Sure. At approximately 6:36 this evening, one of our officers assigned to our crime suppression task force initiated a traffic stop on a red SUV, a red Jeep, in the parking lot of the Waffle House on Jimmy Carter Boulevard near Peachtree Industrial Boulevard. As the officer was making contact with the vehicle, he gave him verbal commands to exit the vehicle. And a little bit of grounding on this is that our officers were looking at him in relation to a string of robberies here in Gwinnett County. We knew that the driver of the red SUV had several outstanding warrants through our neighboring jurisdiction in Hall County. Of those warrants, they were armed robbery, possession of a firearm during the commission of a crime, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and pointing a pistol at another. So as our officer was doing the traffic stop, he gave verbal commands for the subject to exit his vehicle. The subject disobeyed verbal commands and ultimately hit the gas pedal, accelerating forward. At some point, the subject then took out a firearm and began shooting in the direction of the officer, striking at the Waffle House at least one time. In the same parking lot, we had a detective assigned to our robbery unit in an unmarked car, a red passenger car. And that red passenger car had its blue lights going. The subject, after he fled from the marked patrol car, started accelerating towards the red unmarked car with the blue lights. Noticing that this was another officer, the subject fired at least one round towards that red passenger car, striking it at least one time. The round that was delivered towards the red passenger car struck the trunk. It traveled through the trunk, through the back seat, and it traveled through the back seat into the driver's seat where the officer was sitting. The patrol car officer then began his pursuit towards the exit of the parking lot, right where I'm standing here today. The patrol car began following him out onto Jimmy Carter Boulevard, and that's when the subject made a left-hand turn. Because of the accelerated speeds, the subject lost control of his vehicle, and at times you can see him on two wheels on the left side and two wheels on the right side as his vehicle was beginning to spin. As the vehicle was beginning to spin and come to a stop, his vehicle was facing the marked patrol car over near the right shoulder on Jimmy Carter Boulevard. As the officer and the subject are facing one another, nose to nose, that's when the subject began firing through the windshield and through the passenger side window at the officer. We don't know right now exactly how many times he fired at the officer, but our officer made contact with his vehicle, using his vehicle to strike the subject, and then ultimately exiting his vehicle and firing multiple times at the bad guy. The subject was fired upon multiple times, but at this time it's unclear exactly how many times he was shot. As soon as the shooting stopped, the officers pulled the subject out of the driver's seat and began to render aid until the fire department could arrive. The subject is deceased on the shoulder of the roadway, and the GBI has been activated per our protocol. Right now, because this is a very large crime scene encompassing not only the Waffle House and a parking lot, but the major roadway here on Jimmy Carter Boulevard, the roadway and the parking lot have been shut down through the duration of this investigation. We have members of our executive command staff here, in addition to our chief. The district attorney's office is here, and members of our CISM team who are here to offer support to our officers. Let me just make sure I have covered everything with you all. And also the district attorney's office is also here on scene, which is normal protocol for their agency.
Sergeant, guy drives, officer's trying to stop him, guy floors who tries to take off, opens fire at officers. How brazen of a crime is this?
It's very possible that the subject knew he had active warrants through a neighboring jurisdiction. I can't speak on behalf of him to justify what he had done, but I'm just very thankful that our officers are safe. Nobody was struck on our unit in our department, and the bad guy, the shooting has come to a stop.
Can you talk about, you've been out in the field yourself. You guys see this is what this team does. They're just going out trying to get someone into custody, and how quick this goes from just what this team does daily to literally trying to protect themselves and, in a gun battle for their life. I mean, how quick that changes out here for you guys.
So when our officers go through training in the academy, and when they go through quarterly firearms training, we never anticipate that we're going to have to actually utilize those skills. but we are prepared in the event that we have to. In this particular case, we wanted to just do a felony traffic stop. And it was looking like that when the driver initially pulled over and he came to a stop. And we were hoping that it would come to an end right there, but unfortunately he accelerated, fired upon our officers multiple times, forcing us to return fire.
And you talked about how significant it is that none of your officers were hurt, which is wonderful. But also, I mean, this is a big parking lot. We've seen so many people out here even late. So talk about how significant it is that no bystanders were hurt. I mean, the Waffle House was struck, so many people were around, and yet no one was hurt in all of this chaos.
So this incident happened around 6:30 in the evening. However, we'd been watching him for a short period of time right before that. We're very fortunate that nobody was hurt apart from the suspect. There were shots fired in this parking lot. You have a lot of people who live in this community who walk to and from these stores. So we're very fortunate that nobody else was injured.
How did your investigators know to keep their eyes on this guy?
I can't go into any specifics on how they developed him as a possible lead. I just know that we were looking at him for robberies here in Gwinnett County, and we were looking to make charges.
Do you know how long they were tracking him for to this point?
I don't know how long they had their eyes on him before this ultimately happened.
Are we talking like a matter of like a weeks-long investigation, or are we saying there's something that's developed in the last couple of days?
I'm not sure. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.